And Mr. President, to the gentleman's point from Hanover, you know, somebody asked me, I haven't supported this in the past, and I have the past couple years because I believe it is time. But the fact of the matter is people have become so engrossed with their smartphones that they're absolutely oblivious to the world around them. And so it's not so much that they're picking up a phone to make a phone call. It's the fact that they are texting, and they don't even look up. It was probably a week since I met somebody on 218 in a small car. It was a young girl, and she had her head buried, and I could see both thumbs, and she came all the way over to my lane and almost hit me head on, but for the fact that I took the ditch and was able to get around her. That's a frequent occurrence in the part of the world that I live in because it's so much traffic. And so when you talk about adjusting a radio temporarily versus texting, because they just don't send one text, it's constant communication via text now, and they don't ever hardly look up. And it's a significant distraction, and the fact of the matter is law enforcement cannot enforce the texting laws. It is impossible to enforce the texting laws with the way the law is in Virginia. And so that really is what this addresses. And what the governor did was he essentially put the bill on the gentleman from Williamsburg work zone bill that has passed this body twice with significant bipartisan support. And the way it works is it's unlawful to operate the motor vehicle while you hold a cell phone. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but that's the way the police can enforce it. If you're holding on to that cell phone, then they can enforce that act, where otherwise it becomes very, very difficult. That was the problem with the texting law and proving anything. It's a simple way to enforce it, and that's why the bill is done that way. Also, there were a lot of significant concerns in here about adopting this now, about people profiling, using it as probable cause to make stops that were not justified. And there are three really important enactment clauses in this bill which the governor put. First of all, it gives a delayed enactment clause until 2020. And it gives time for education of the public, because we don't want to go out here and just start writing tickets for this. We want to educate people and say, look, you can't do this in Virginia anymore. And that's very, very important, two enactment clauses. The other enactment clause that's incredibly important to me, and I think protects our civil rights, is it allows the courts of justice committees to get reports on the citations being written, and we can analyze those reports to make sure that there's not selective enforcement or enforcement in certain communities or amongst certain groups or anything like that, to make sure it's being fairly and evenly enforced against us all. So this bill had broad support in this chamber, and you all know what happened, but it passed here twice. First, the senator from Eastern Fairfax carried it 2 years ago. I carried it this past year, and I hope we can adopt the governor's recommendations today.
Thank you, Senator. For what purpose, Senator from Roanoke City, Senator Edwards, rise? No? Okay. What purpose, Senator from Eastern Fairfax, Senator Surovell, rise?
Speaking to the amendments.
Senator's floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And ladies and gentlemen, I didn't talk about this during session because these bills had a pretty healthy head of steam on them, I think, going to the other side. But from what I've read in the papers, it sounds like the Speaker might think that making this bill a little bit bigger might have some procedural issues. And so this might be the only debate we actually have on this. You know, I used to be kind of libertarian on this, you know, being a criminal defense lawyer, worried about police stopping too many people. And about 8 years ago, a family came to my office, and their child, 18-year-old son, had been killed out on Route 7 in Fairfax County, unexplainedly. Kyle Rowley was 18 years old. He's a freshman in college. He'd gone and he was working at a burger shop in Loudoun, and he was driving back to Herndon. and he ran out of gas coming up Route 7. And Route 7 right there is a 6-lane road. 3 lanes, 3 lanes. There's also a left turn lane. So the road was actually 8 lanes wide, divided highway. His car ran out of gas about 10 yards short of a stoplight, put on his blinkers, got out of the car. He was pushing his car off the road, 10 at night, and he was struck from behind at full speed by a guy going 60 miles an hour who never hit his brakes. Wide open road. No other cars on the highway. Police, he was killed instantly. His body was thrown. He got run over. Car got destroyed. He was killed. Police got there and couldn't figure out what in the world could have caused a collision like this. Eventually, they were able to they got the guy out of the car. He couldn't remember anything. He was concussed. They yanked his phone, did a forensic on it, came back. He had sent over 20 text messages in the 10 minutes leading up to the collision, texting back to his ex-wife, who he had just left doing a custody exchange and did some other things with his ex-wife, amorously, I'll just say, while he was there, and talking about how good it was as he was driving down the road. That is what caused 18-year-old Kyle Rowley to be killed. Kyle would be 27 years old today. Kyle he might have children for his parents might have grandchildren today. He's not here anymore. And if y'all remember, that story made headlines, and because of it, many of us, including I believe the senator from James City County, introduced legislation to make texting while driving a primary offense. And at the time, I argued the bill didn't go far enough because it only said letters or numbers, but that was all we could get through the body because the body wasn't comfortable going further than that. And so we ended up passing was a bill that allows you to Pokemon while drive, chase Pokemon, allows you to play Angry Birds while drive, play Farmville while drive, change your music while drive, use WhatsApp while drive, do almost anything you want while drive, just as long as you don't enter texts or numbers in your phone. And what's that meant, as the senator from King George pointed out, is the police have not been able to enforce anything because all anybody has to say is, I wasn't doing that. I was chasing Pokemon, and you're not guilty. The only people that end up getting convicted of this, if they get stopped, are people that actually admit to it. So the law we passed is completely useless. For some reason, somebody on the other side of the body doesn't seem to care too much about that. But I'll tell you what's happened since then, just in the last 4 years. And I don't know if Mindy Schultz is here today, but she's in this building. On August 31st, 2015, her son, Tristan Schultz, 5 months old, run over in his baby stroller in a crosswalk in a shopping center. Who runs over a baby in a baby stroller unless they're completely distracted? Then, just 6 months ago, December 14, 2018, a woman in Roslyn, in Arlington County, got run over by a dump truck in a crosswalk after she pushed her baby stroller out of the way of the dump truck. The dump truck ended up taking her leg off. That case hasn't been adjudicated yet. What caused the guy in a dump truck to run over a woman with a stroller? Distractions. February 13th, 2 months ago, Karen Giles, Chesterfield County, just right down the street from here, killed by a guy named Samuel Albaugh, who was driving a dump truck, who admitted he was texting. He's now been charged with involuntary manslaughter. He has not been adjudicated. That just happened 30 days ago. And then just last week, John Bright, an 82-year-old man, was struck and killed about a mile north of my district on Route 1 in a crosswalk while trying to get across Route 1. This problem is an epidemic, and Virginians are getting killed, if not monthly, weekly. DMV says distracted driving is involved in 20% of the accidents on our highways today. And this problem is out of control. And I would think that if the other body cared so much about life, then they would care about this bill, because lives are being lost every single day because we have not fixed our laws. And so I hope this body does the right thing, and I hope the other side goes back and reads the Constitution and what germaneness is, and they get to vote on it too.